Why is it that Loki did not revert back to his frost giant form when he entered the TVA, or even after he was killed in Infinity War? In the first Thor film, we learned that Loki was not in fact born as a sire of Odin, but instead, Odin adopted him from Jotunheim after his war with the Frost Giants. When we first see him taking Loki, he is originally blue and has the same texture that a Frost Giant's skin would, and we can see glimpses of this throughout the rest of the Thor film. But if this was simply an illusion cast by Odin, then why didn't it fall away when Loki was stripped of his magical abilities in the TVA? Well, today, my friends, let's answer that question. For this, there are 3 prominent theories that we'd like to explore, so let's begin with the first, which is that Odin's magic did more than just cause a mere illusion, and casted something unique. The first theory claims that when Odin cast a spell, he did more than just turn Loki's skin to an Asgardian complexion, and we can see evidence of this in the What If series. In the first season of What If, we are introduced to a reality wherein Loki was never adopted by Odin, and we get to see what would have happened if he had stayed in Jotunheim. In addition to having pale blue skin, Loki is also much larger than his Earth 616 counterpart. This seems to imply that in addition to changing Loki's physical appearance, that Odin was also able to stop him from growing when he reached Asgardian maturity. Therefore, we believe that Odin may have done something to alter Loki's very genetic structure on a molecular level, effectively transmutating him into an Asgardian officially. It's only when Loki touches artifacts reminiscent of Jotunheim, like the Casket of Ancient Winters, that the magic begins to fall away to reveal Loki's blue, true form. What it doesn't do, however, is cause Loki to grow, which it should reasonably do if his size is just an illusion, as his skin is theorized that it is. So if there's more than simple illusion magic going on here, then it might suggest that Odin's changes were all but permanent, and can only be stripped away under direct exposure to powerful Jotun artifacts or environments. There are some points and precedent that seem to support this theory, but there are also a few instances that challenge this idea. Namely, while Odin does have some magical abilities, most of his power lies in brute force and combat prowess. If Odin had the power to cast magic this powerful, then why didn't he use a more permanent spell when imprisoning Hela? If the spell that he used on Loki can survive Odin's death, then why wouldn't Odin use something similar to keep Hela at bay? Although of course the spells could be different in nature, we still think that this is a possibility that should be noted. The answer may be as simple as Hela's imprisonment taking more energy or being more complex than the spell that he gave to Loki. But unfortunately right now, we don't know the complex inner workings of Asgardian magic. The idea that magic doesn't seem to be on Odin's strongest attributes, however, leads us into our second of the 3 theories, which is that this isn't Odin's magic at all. When we see him pick up Loki on Jotunheim, he changes into an individual that more closely resembles an Asgardian. But what if this was actually Loki's own subconscious? And what if there was evidence to support this idea? In Thor Ragnarok, we learned that Loki is able to access memories by simply touching an individual. This leads us into both of the next 2 theories, depending on whether or not this is an innate ability or something that was taught to Loki, but we'll get to that in just a moment. If this is an innate ability that Loki has always had, then is it possible that when Odin picked him up, that he saw into Odin's memories, and specifically, the memories of his eldest child? Until this point, Odin had fought all of his wars with Hela by his side, and seeing an abandoned child may have led him to thinking in some way about Hela. If Loki could see this, then is it possible that his appearance is actually based on that of Odin's own daughter? The long black hair, the affinity for green attire, and the general aesthetic of both siblings seems to suggest that if any of the children are to be the odd one out, it would be Thor, and there may be reason for this. This option suggests that Loki himself has been inadvertently keeping his appearance in line with the Asgardians that surround him, and has been subconsciously matching his appearance to fit in with those on Asgard. This might mean that Loki has been controlling his own growth, and the cracks in his complexion that we see in Thor might also be the work of his own subconscious. We've known that Odin has always favored Thor, and that Loki has felt like somewhat of an outsider, though we never know how deep this feeling of inadequacy actually went within Loki. The appearance of his blue skin might be his curiosity, or rather, the slipping of his confidence. If Loki believes himself to be a frost giant, then his own control over his own appearance may reflect this belief, especially in key moments when he is close to his Jotun heritage. This would also explain why his appearance doesn't simply drop off as soon as he learns that he's a frost giant, as he's been so comfortable in this Asgardian form that it might be difficult to willingly drop it. It might be like working a muscle that he's never had to use before in order to willingly look like a frost giant, and exposure to Jotun environments and artifacts can help him lower this guard. While both of these explanations are plausible, there is one other idea that we'd like to at least touch upon. That being that neither of these two are responsible for why Loki looks the way that he does. But what exactly do we mean by this? We know that many of Odin's spells actually die with him, and his spells seem to crumble after his death, which leads us to believe that there is something more permanent going on with Loki. So now we're left with a few variables to consider. If Loki's transformation was near permanent and was much deeper than simple illusion magic, but it was not Odin's doing, we must look to Loki's mother in Frigga, who we know is a talented sorceress and taught Loki everything he knows about magic. We proposed that this explanation went something like this. When we first see Loki transform as an infant, this is Odin casting his own illusion magic over Loki in order to bring him home safely. After all, he can't carry a child that looks like a frost giant through the remains of Jotunheim and directly into Asgard without enduring severe scrutiny and potential physical danger. So he did this as a temporary fix in order to carry Loki across the border safely. Once he arrived in Asgard, he burdens only Frigga with the secret, one that no one else may know Loki's true heritage. From here, it was Frigga that used her own magic to create a more permanent solution that could survive even her and Loki's respective deaths. We know that she was raised by witches, and is far more powerful in the ways of magic and more experienced than Odin was. While Odin is a conqueror, Frigga is a true practitioner of the mystic arts, and could have cast a much more powerful spell than Odin could have ever conjured due to the fact that this was Frigga's bread and butter. These three distinct possibilities all revolve around the same concept, that whatever magic was cast on Loki changed him on such a fundamental level that it's very difficult to revert him to his frost giant form. He can only be altered by directly encountering strong reminders of his true heritage. But as far as whose magic this is, we'd like to get your opinion. Do you think that it was Odin, Frigga, or even Loki himself that cast this permanent spell over him? Does this explain why he does not revert back in the TVA or even when he dies? Was Loki's appearance actually just a figment of his own subconscious as he grew up around other Asgardians? Or even that he looked into Odin's memories and could see Hela? Or was there someone more powerful or experienced responsible? Was it Frigga, Odin, Loki, or someone else entirely? Thank you so much for visiting our channel today, my friends. Hit that subscribe button and that like button if you've been enjoying our content, and I will see you in the next one.